Okay, it is December 11th, 2017, 9 o'clock. We will call the Floyd County Board of Supervisors Workshop meeting to order at 9:02. First item on our agenda is to approve our agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve our agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, public comment. Hearing none, seeing none. We're on item 3, update on various
He
boards.
tried.
Bob? You're up.
Moments passed.
All right. Item 3, update on various boards, commissions, activities since the last meeting.
Let's see, I did attend a Christmas party for the foster grandparents program, and I did attend as an observer, mostly to the compensation board meeting that was held that Tuesday night. And then on Thursday, we had the District 2 supervisor meeting out at the Elks, and that was very interesting. It was very worthwhile. It's always good to hear what the other counties are doing, what they've achieved, let alone what their challenges are. So, very good meeting. That's pretty much it. Oh, I'm sorry, Community Revite. I did go to the Community Revitalization meeting. Okay.
I had a cold and was unable to attend any county meeting. So I don't have anything to report about. I was curious as the legislators had an agenda that they presented, or there's anyone there from the majority party, or Linda Upmeyer, or anyone that talk about their.
Linda was not, but
Linda wasn't.
Waylon Brown was there.
Todd
Dennis
Butchard.
Goofy, whatever his name is from over to the
DeGoose,
west.
isn't it? Yeah. Steckman?
Sharon Steckman was there.
Sharon was there.
Amanda
And
Reagan.
Reagan.
There was another guy there, but I didn't know who he was.
Well, he was with, like I said, the gal that, I always forget her name.
Bill Peterson is there too?
Who?
Was Bill Peterson there? Is he the guy you're thinking of?
He's Bill, but then the gal
Well, he's
that was
from
there.
ISAC.
Yeah.
Tall, she's from, close by here, I'm trying to remember her name. She was new, she was just elected this last year.
Oh, Bloom,
Yes, Bloomingdale. This is
Bloomingdale or
Yeah.
Bloomingfield or whatever she is from. Yep.
So I think, from last year, we had a really good attendance.
Mhm.
And so it was really interesting, but they really didn't have much time for the panel discussion, like I was saying, like last year, a lot of people had more time to ask questions of them. The only question that really, I think, was on everybody's mind is what's happening with mental health, at the state level. What can we do? And all of them, they know it's a concern, and it's hard for them to really say, what the answer is right at this point.
And Waylon did mention to me that the Medicaid thing was also gonna be a big deal this year too. Trying to get that thing figured out. And I attended the District 2 supervisor and also had a very lively, very well-attended department head meeting the other day. A lot of topics. Mostly concerning the parking out here.
Oh.
We have one that's really upset.
In jail, right off the jail plans were brought out.
Good,
Yeah.
good,
Law enforcement center.
good.
So that will be a future agenda item at some time. Any more? We'll go on to item 4, which is review the claims, which we have here, which we received electronically. Item 5, discussion regarding Iowa Economic Development Authority Housing Enterprise Zone Program Agreement, Contract Amendment number 1 for EZ Agreement number 14-HEZ-132. Did I say that all right?
Boy, you're on top of your game.
Wow.
Well, this is in the Allen subdivision, which is Charles Living Enterprise Zone, EC 5A, 113.01 acres, which is where the Park Avenue subdivision is, and LI 567, 4567, I'm not sure how many first in. But as you can see, the contract amendment specifies 8 houses, or 6 houses instead of 8 houses. The Enterprise Zone Commission originally approved this in April 2014. Then in September of 2014, there was an amendment that Royce Wickera signed, and the only thing that I can figure out happened in that amendment is that it went from a different number of single-family homes and twin homes.
Was there an amendment with the city? Remember there was some discussion up there with the park? Remember all that?
Yeah,
Couple of lots were gonna, I wonder if that's not, doesn't make any difference, I guess.
well, anyway, 6 of the houses have been built, and they want to close out the Enterprise Zone program. So, we decided to put a halt to it now, which means that the houses may or may not be built, but you just won't get the Enterprise Zone benefit, which is the refund of the sales and use tax, and the 10% investment tax credit on the first $140,000 of value. And then the city, I believe that they have met their minimum assessed valuation requirement, so the city's okay with this.
Who's closing out the enterprise zone? State of Iowa?
State, it ended July 1st, 2014.
The ones that were, my subdivision, what time was in that?
Yeah,
So those things are no more
there
there?
are no more.
Okay.
No. No, we had business enterprise zone and housing enterprise zone, and we did quite well with both of them, actually.
So is there any, this is really just a formality?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
The state's already agreed to it, so.
That's what I was gonna ask, so if they're okay with it, I guess, and the city's okay.
There was a lot of discussion at that district supervisor meeting that we had about housing, particularly from Wright County, how they're gonna handle all of these people that are gonna come there, and there were different people, different supervisors brought up different ways that we're gonna do that. I think Wright County has were they gonna do some kind of housing program or something?
Several of them talked about the need, so we're not the only one, that has had, concern about some of our housing needs, but it was pretty apparent, especially in some of these counties that are clearly growing fast
Mhm.
because of some new economic development opportunity that's going there.
But what we found is that the counties around Iowa, or the communities that have done so-called first housing, which is an apartment complex, the rents are $950 to $1,250 a month.
Yeah.
And we have people that can afford that. The question is whether they want to pay it when you can rent a house for about you.
Right.
And there was a time 15 years ago when the supervisors put aside some sales tax for a couple of years on new home construction. I know I got in on out there with the house I built out in Oak Creek.
You got some tax abatement?
Right. I believe that came direct from the supervisors.
Yeah, we used to have an incentive program where for 3 years you could get a percentage of the property owner could get a percentage of the county portion of their taxes reimbursed. And that ended, I'm gonna guess maybe around 2008.
It was a long time ago, yeah. I mean, this is for discussion maybe.
Yeah.
And of course, the supervisor set aside $500,000 for infrastructure for housing. And, I think there's, 33,000 in that account.
Well, the 113 wasn't used and was used to pay the debt, but then we have the 33,000 from Russell Strong's that's been paid back.
Has he?
It's all done, it was last year,
Okay.
that was all done.
And we did give Gary some of that for some infrastructure up there.
Absolutely, yeah. Multiple phases.
Mhm.
And it's 40% of eligible
There's
street storm
some
sewer.
that you should figure out what to do with.
How much is in there now?
It's coming up, it's been very slow, I think it's around that 30, 40, that Tim said.
Eventually, we would request to use it for housing needs assessment. Countywide, plus an actually have to figure out.
Is there a plan to do
I
that?
don't know that could be used for housing needs assessment, because that's, the auditors told us it has to be used for the same intent that
It
it was
does.
used, yeah.
What we'd like to do is do a housing needs assessment when the go-in place is full. Because until that is there, it skews our demand function.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense,
Okay.
okay.
So this is for discussion. Are there any other questions we have for review and action tomorrow?
Okay. I think it's pretty good,
All right,
appreciate it.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Hey, item 6, discussion regarding jail law enforcement center plans.
Okay, so I had Jeff, from our last discussion about some of the outstanding concerns that we had. One of them about the 500-year floodplain. We had mentioned having Jeff do a more look into that to see what he could find out, and he has done that. So I did want to put this on for discussion, and have Jeff kind of present what he,
Get your,
do you need
your
the?
bigger map, I don't know if you need that or not.
Okay.
Well, here's, and I didn't make copies for everyone, that's the FEMA flood map. And the orange is the 500. This is the Iowa Flood Center's inundation map, which shows a little bit more, what do we have here? Let me turn me around. That's just what all the colors mean. Because I couldn't, it wouldn't let me print it off there. Let's see if we're going like this. Here's where they show a little bit, if you compare the two, they're showing a little bit more inundation with the 500 than what Phoenix is. Which I think they're using the LiDAR information when they did their determination, but this kind of gives you an idea. And the 1,002 is your flood, your 100-year flood. And that's that line, and that's kind of what they're showing. That's your 100-year, your 500-year is back here. I think is at 1,004.
It's all pretty consistent, just for all.
There's a little bit, they're showing a little bit more inundation, but they're using more scientific information than they do on the FEMA maps.
And again, you received this from who?
I took this off the Flood Center's website,
Yeah.
just to give you
Yeah.
a better picture of what they're showing.
So the 100-year and 500-year floodplains that were indicated by Prohaska are accurate according to.
Well,
the
they're pretty close.
So that's what this is showing.
There's a little bit of difference.
No matter what, they're all projections.
Right.
Which is right in here.
Which is right in here.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fairly close.
And so Jeff did give me a list of surveyors that we could actually, land surveyors, and take it another step and have them be hired to come and do a reading. I did contact Jeff, not Jeff, Lucy? Out of
Oh,
Allison.
Steve.
Steve,
I did talk to him, I just chatted with him about what our needs are here and what he thought, and he said absolutely, that he could come in and and do that for us. That's why I wanted it on the agenda. I wanna know what next steps would everybody like to take. I did ask him how much it would cost, and he said roughly around anywhere from $800 to $1,000. And he had just performed one, I think, for, across the street for Jim Davis. So he had just been doing one for his building too. So that is another
Of the 500 year,
one,
the 100?
The 100.
But we will do a 500 year.
yes, yeah. I asked, I know you had talked about what you had heard,
Yeah,
that a lot of these land surveyors may not want to, put their name on a document that says that they're certifying that information.
of a 500 year.
Over 500, so, I don't know. He didn't share any concerns, he just said, let me know if you want me to go ahead and pursue that, so.
But, like I was telling Linda when we looked at this, my biggest concern would be this street and this jail parking.
As far
Because-
as being in there?
Access. In a flood, you're not gonna have any access to the jail.
Oh,
If they talked about that, they would put a drive along the
Yeah.
side.
Right.
But
and that's what I said,
Yeah,
you can pave right to your
Mm.
property line
Right.
with a permit,
right.
and you got 30 feet, well, you got more than that.
You got more than
More
that.
than
You got
that.
room probably
The
even.
the
All
dotted
of
line, the
this.
dotted line is 30 feet,
Right,
Right,
plus the alley,
right.
there's a vacated alley.
Mhm.
yeah.
So again, I still have for Haskett, sitting and not doing any more with it. I just said, hold on until we make this decision, whether or not we actually want them to go back and do a modification to our conceptual design, pulling that building back further or what to do. So again, it's kind of sitting and waiting to, figure out what steps we want to take as a board.
To me, it's not a big issue. I don't, I just don't feel like it's even close enough that we're worried about it, but. And every time I see these lines, you just remind yourself that these are just layers put on top of a building. That is not the way that.
Well, this is the LiDAR data. This is the,
Right. It's something they flew with an airplane,
right.
and that's what.
That's what they're gonna make all flood maps to in the state of Iowa eventually.
And that's what Kent Brody talks about all the time, and Linda paid for one.
Yes, we did, dearly.
But LiDAR is the latest
Yeah.
technology.
So,
It potentially could give you a little more opportunity for closer parking if the building was slid back as well. And change that. Because that was one of the things discussed, is that whole area where the driveway is, was covered with water in the 2008 flood. And so potentially that could all maybe changed a little bit. If they moved the building back.
My opinion hasn't changed either. I don't think we should be building critical infrastructure like the jail law enforcement center in a 500-year floodplain. And I think there's a lot of data to back that up, especially when it's relatively easy to move the proposal within the footprint that we currently own and meet that 500-year requirement.
I do know that some of this will change. They will have to redo some of their design, because right now they've got the movement of the inmates and everything easily going into the existing courthouse. So there will be some modifications, not just simply moving everything back. So I just need to make that statement. Not that it can't be done, but it's a little bit more
Yeah,
than
it's
just
not just
literally, it's
sliding
just
it
not
over.
moving it back, because it does impact all of these areas, of where they were, the flow of traffic and everything into the existing, so. But again, we can certainly do that, so is your thoughts then to just pass on paying any money for any more information and just go ahead and go back to Haskell and say, can we have another altered design approach that shows the building outside the 500-year flood plain. That's
I believe, didn't Zach have one? He flashed something
He,
at the meeting, and he said, here's a plan that meets that,
well,
but he
but
didn't
it, but
show
it
it to
was
us.
not including all the modifications that have been done up to the recent 1B design. So he had something, but he knew also, and that was Jim that had done that, that there would still be some additional modifications. So it wasn't that he just has it. I think he had
It was
thought down that
one of
path,
his early
and then he
conceptual
stopped,
things,
right,
yeah.
right, and went down the path with this one. So, again, I can certainly do that if that's the want, and that's why I wanted to bring it up today as a workshop discussion.
Well, my question back then, is he at the end of, has he fulfilled everything in that thing? Or if
We
if
can
you
start
have him go
that.
back and do this again, is that still under the original scope, or are we gonna pay him some more money?
No, it's still under the original scope.
I say keep moving.
Okay,
Tell him if he slide it backwards and
okay.
come up with it.
I know a 500-year floodplain is probability of 0.2% in any 1 year that we're going to have a flood that reaches those levels. But given the reality of 500-year floods, I want to show you what happened in Cedar Rapids in 2008. Here's a picture of Bear County Jail. Right here. That's Bear County Jail.
Mhm.
And we don't want that to happen here, especially when we're at the point where we're deciding where this could be located, if it could be moved and altered on that same footprint. It just seems to be, let's just take that possibility off the table, and I think it'll meet with the voters in Floyd County a lot better.
And we can do that. So I'll go ahead and get a hold of them. The other thing, and thanks Jeff, for doing this, in discussion also with the Law Enforcement Center, I thought I'd bring up that we had a great discussion, Gloria and I did, with Clinton County, because they're in the process right now of, they did get their bond referendum approved, and they are in the process of building their jail. And it was good discussion, because a lot of what they've gone through is very similar to what we've gone through. They were able to give us some good recommendations, that as we go into more campaign mode, what becomes, successful in getting a bond referendum passed. And then also,
They have an
Jack's,
amazing website. If you check out
Yeah.
their website, I can send you the link to it. Live videos, information, live building as it's going on currently.
and their campaign,
And
all their citizens
informational
meetings, yep, they were all videotaped and recorded, and it's very, and if you have a chance, go out there and look at it, it's very impressive.
Clinton County.
That's Clinton County. And then Jackson County is in the process right now of, they're a step behind us, so they're realizing the need for their jail to be, and I think, and that was one thing too, it was apparent to me that there were several of the counties on Thursday's meeting that were talking about their jails and what they've had to do. So this seems to be pretty, something that a lot of counties are having to deal with right now and make decisions on. But anyway, I'm gonna try after the first of the year, since I'm from Macokota, which is in Jackson County, I'm gonna go back and talk to the Jackson County Sheriff and the supervisor back there and go take a look at the Clinton County one and see how they're progressing and just get more information from them, so I'll keep you posted on that. And then we've also made the decision that the 21st of December is gonna be the dispatch discussion. And so I'm working with the city group that's putting their information together so that we have one consistent PowerPoint to go through and present, so. Anyway, that will happen, I think it's at 6 o'clock on the 21st.
Okay.
Right?
All right, thanks Jeff, appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You want to have any other discussion about other issues about any of that renovation part of the building? Like where you'd like to see the boardroom and that kind of stuff? just if Linda's going to them, they
Well,
don't want
maybe you
them,
better wait
well,
until he redoes something over there.
Well, right now, again, as a reminder, we're not looking at all of, anything that isn't impacted by, again, the new jail being attached to our existing courthouse. Sounds like then you have, and I think it's a great idea that you're talking with the department heads and having that discussion to talk about just the building, the current courthouse, and some of the, potential maybe redesigns or effect to some of the departments. I think that's great, start getting their input, get them involved. The one thing that we may want to, and I guess that's true, if you are interested in any other renovations to the existing courthouse that is not an impact necessarily to the jail, if we want to have Prohaska do anything with that, we can certainly have them look at that too and add a cost. And again, it would be if we renovate or move any existing, like this boardroom, to another location, do we want to include that, I guess, in the bond referendum? And that's another discussion.
To me, it seems like you should, to a certain point, especially the heating, the cooling, the windows. Those are major things, we'd have to budget $2 million, $3 million, to do that. Heating,
Heating and cooling in the
That's
windows.
in that.
windows. Yes, I understand that, but to me, it needs to be in there as part of that. Otherwise, we'd have to budget that piecemeal at a time,
Mhm.
or,
I don't think that's nailed down
If we
real
budgeted-
specific things, but they've thrown a margin in there for renovation costs of offices and that type of thing.
Right.
Some of the things they said that would make a difference would be like if you're going to have a window, say for assessor and recorder's offices, to work out of or not. It's gonna cost less to do that than it would be to
We
remove
move the
an
entire
office.
department to another location.
Yeah.
Right.
well, to me, that all needs to be as part of the bond. If we decided, so this thing doesn't go through, it's still just a what if, so if the bond issue did not go through the first time. And Hancock County did bring up at the thing that they're transferring their prisoners, they just decided they weren't gonna build one, and they're transferring theirs to, during the day, during the night. They don't leave them there at night anymore, but if they need them during the day, they go
I
get
could
them.
not understand that. I wanted
I-
to talk to Sis about that too and find out how that works. But yeah, they just took that approach. They're paying for that service rather than.
Right. So if this bond issue did not go through and we decide that we're just gonna use this as a transfer or a temporary, at some point, we still gotta address the courthouse. The heating, the cooling, the windows.
Elevator.
Yeah,
Bathroom.
exactly, exactly. So, that's more than you can budget for, so we'd be back for a bond issue for courthouse renovation.
And it was a common message on Thursday that everybody is dealing with renovation of their courthouse and trying to keep it maintained.
Who was it that said they've been kicking the can down the road and all at once? Was it Winnebago County?
That did what?
Talked about how they've been kicking the can down the road so long that their courthouse is now falling apart.
Yeah.
Obviously it happened in Mitchell County, but this was another county, I don't remember which one it was. Same thing they were faced with, they gotta do something now.
When you have a building, you need to maintain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a cost associated with that. So anyway, what we can do is continue, I think it's great, I would recommend that you're having those department head meetings, get their input. I think it's great if we can come up with that window option that maybe saves us some money, from what they were planning on doing, as far as renovating square footage in a department that they planned on moving, and we don't have to, that's great. So, that savings could be looked at, as maybe potential other, rooms and things like this, so.
But again, then you're still into whether he's drawing concepts or whether he's actually getting right down to detail.
And this is not detailed at that point, it's just, but the biggest thing is that, yes, it's conceptual. We don't wanna get down to the nuts and the bolts on this thing, but if it is a major cost implication, we wanna make sure that we're recognizing that and getting that, you know, accounted for in the total dollars that we would go to bond for. So,
Okay,
okay,
there you go.
all right, sounds good. All right.
Okay. Item 7, discussion regarding initiative to support efforts combating the opioid epidemic. In the ISAC, explained, Bill Peterson gave us a little talk on this whole thing. It's, what he has included in his package, and I think everybody got these as an email. I mean, I've read through these, and there's some questions. What you're really doing with this is allowing or enabling 3 different law firms to sue the drug manufacturers. And Bill acted like there was, if you do this, then you get to share in the rewards at the end,
If there is.
if there is. You're not, it doesn't cost anything.
The one thing I know I looked at, and as you read through this, I think it's great that they're trying to do something. Nationally, obviously, we're hearing about it all the time, but trying to get that, and encourage the counties to help support, you know, doing something. To go back on some of these drug companies, what I always get concerned about, because I don't know the details behind it, but let's say that they do come back with a settlement, you would have to, and your county is able to collect some of that money. It's a matter of how do you collect that data, you know? And maybe some of it's obvious, I don't know. Like they were bringing up about how many times maybe you're having autopsies performed, and the reason, you know, had to be, the person died because of, you know, drug overdose or something to be tied to opioid. I just don't know how easy that's gonna be to be able to collect that data.
I
That's
think
just
the
a question.
comparison that Bill was making is if this is like the tobacco settlement, that went to the state and they've been fighting over it for years. If you sign this resolution, it comes back directly to the county and then you spend it here.
Well, and they said, there's no cost to doing this, except for, there is on the back end, because they're gonna require time and resources of somebody, you know, to go back and verify, you know, that there was so many,
Well, if you
problems
go
that you
back
had
to
and
this
you
page,
tied
it's
it
pretty
to
easy
the
to see where who's getting the money. Local council gets 5%,
Yeah,
So this is being proposed to all 99 counties
All
by
99.
ISAC?
and I
with
think
their
they
input.
said 7 have returned it or passed this resolution, but there was a lot of comment on it, but I didn't get a lot of feedback that I thought was real positive, and everybody thought this was a good deal.
well, I think it's a great cause, you know, certainly from, you know, all the news that you hear on this, and again, I think, you know, a lot of cases, they're just not really informing the drug companies, from what I'm gathering, they're not informing the physicians and everybody else about, you know, the problems, and making sure that they're passing the correct information on down to the patients as to, you know, the potential abuse factor, so,
Yeah, these are the pharma manufacturers on the front. I don't know, you have to read through it, and you have to,
So is this on for tomorrow?
No, that's
No.
not the,
Okay. Alright, so really it's just bringing this to our attention.
right. So, again, look through it and let me know if you wanna put it on, if you wanna
Yeah,
pass it.
it's good information.
You Okay, item 8, discussion regarding the 2018 holiday schedule. Which we have proposed.
So I just took what you've done in the past. I did highlight one on there for consideration for Christmas Eve falls on a Monday. And so I did that on there, consideration to close
What was
Christmas
our-
Eve.
So what's the difference between these two?
It's the same thing, it's just I cut it in half when I put it out in the payroll checks. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Okay.
should have just printed one
Just
half
wanna
of
make
it.
sure.
It's the same.
You're confusing us.
On the same paper. When if we make everything like that, I should have cut it in half, same thing.
You have this highlighted Christmas Eve, so it will be closed on Monday.
That's a proposal for you, it's not, in the past, the supervisors have gone anywhere from 8, 9, or 10 holidays over the past years, depending on how things fall on the calendar. And with Christmas Eve falling on a Monday, there has been circumstances in the past where you have closed in a situation like that.
And last year, what was,
We've had offices close early on Christmas Eve because there was no customers at 4:30, or, you know,
right,
it seems.
So all these dates then meet the number of days that you typically have?
this proposed is 10 days.
Yes. Typically.
This year it's 9 days?
Yeah. One time since I've been here, the supervisors did 8. Most ordinarily it's 9. This one just seems, I know some counties, like, for example, a later agenda item you have is meeting, for tomorrow is meeting with Cerro Gordo County on a drainage district. Well, the reason we're doing it tomorrow is because Cerro Gordo County they have they have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day as holidays. So they're closed on the 25th for Christmas Eve and the 26th for Christmas Day. So that would have been your next meeting to meet on that drainage district, but they're closed, so they're not meeting that day. So this is just, when it's a Monday on a holiday, it's going to be an extremely slow day. I doubt there's going to be much for traffic coming in the courthouse, but it's an entirely your decision. I would just advocate to close it, but I haven't engaged any other county employees from past meetings. Maybe I should have. I don't know. To see if I want to come to this meeting, but I haven't done that.
Okay.
Thoughts?
I know there's several offices that close their doors. They announce it, I think they put it in the brief section of the Chancellery Press that they're closing. And probably should have something uniform because, you know, people do come to the courthouse for reasons, and they'll come, you know, I would prefer to see something uniform, so we know if all the offices are open or all the offices are closed from a
Right.
point of view.
Right.
You know, so it's consistent and people know ahead of time and are aware of it, so whether that day it's added or not, it just should be known that.
Make sure people are aware.
Correct.
It makes sense, you know.
I would imagine that if it's not a holiday, that there would be several single offices closed on that day.
I would think
Anyway.
so.
I always take that week off for my vacation between Christmas and New Year's.
I think all the offices would be closed.
Yeah, I see.
Single, not the larger offices. But it's on your agenda for tomorrow.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
9, note the Floyd County Compensation Board's recommendations for fiscal year 19 elected officers.
Are you here for this, or
Official
I
salaries.
just wanted to listen.
just listening? Okay.
Yes, it's interesting.
You're missing it, aren't you?
Well, not, can the public ask any questions during this meeting or no? I wasn't gonna talk about comp, I was going back to the holidays just really quick. Are you open on New Year's Eve day then, the last day of the year?
The New Year's this year, we would be closed, no, we'd be open on, the 31st.
So then, moving forward to the 2018, you're saying you'd be open on the 31st? Because New
Yes.
Year's
For next year, you mean?
Eve,
For next
yeah,
year.
for, yeah,
For next year, I
2018,
think it falls on,
a Monday.
yeah, so,
And that's not marked down as a day.
Okay, but just curious,
Yeah, that's not marked down as a day.
because that seems to be a day a lot of people want to come in and pay up.
right,
Right.
31st
That makes more
usually
sense
isn't
to
a
be
good
open on
day,
that
but-
day.
yeah.
And then Mark alluded to very appropriately, you're right, I forget, clerk of court, I mean, if they're open or not. Hi, Frank.
At this time, the clerk of court does not show December 24th as a holiday, but they oftentimes will end up getting a judge's order to close the offices.
Gotcha. Now I'm gonna be quiet.
Or do, they'll be doing, sometimes they'll do their,
I was just curious, okay.
what did they do? With their budget cuts, they have had times where they've closed
Right,
because
Right.
of budget,
furlough and
yeah,
whatever.
furlough days. Thank you, that was the word I was looking for.
That's okay. Gotcha, makes sense.
Okay, these are, well, we are noting them. Any discussion? Actually, Cheryl was part of our discussion this year. A member of the-
Thank you for that
Well,
opportunity.
Join the board, yeah, so, and again, I sat in on, interesting enough, I thought, when, again, on Thursday's District 2 meeting, that was the number one topic everybody had. was
What's that?
Has your compensation board met?
Yeah,
And if so, what did they come up with? And it's kind of across the board,
Really?
yeah, what you're hearing, but
So if I can ask, what was the range that you were hearing? In
I
District
think they
two?
were
I mean, it's
mostly in
around
this
this.
2 and
It's not-
3%.
yeah, it's not off, base from what this recommendation is.
I think Chickasaw County is probably one of the highest I've heard.
They were the one that was like way,
Really?
And Howard County is usually always high.
Who?
Howard County is usually always
There's,
high.
nobody was there from Howard County. Wasn't anybody there.
There is I haven't looked at it yet, but there is a survey out there. If you'd like to know that information, I can get that, it's an ISAC
At budget
survey.
time, we're gonna look at it over and over and over again. I mean, this is information for the budget. Okay,
no,
going over. Item 10, discussion regarding fiscal year 19 budget planning and fiscal year 18 budget amendment.
Oh, for fiscal year 19, I just wanted to see if you were, when you wanted to have budget workshops with department heads. I haven't gotten budgets out to them, I need to get them out to them today preferably. So, you'll have your organizational meeting on the 2nd of January, and sometimes you start doing your budget workshops at that time, following the organizational meeting. And then like the 8th and 9th would be your regular workshop, your workshop and your regular meeting. Those 3 days were probably like typically what we would put down time slots for department heads to come in and meet with you. I would go with that, if that's what you'd like to see, or.
Anybody have an objection to doing it that fast?
And then, I'd also need your thoughts on what you would like me to tell department heads to pass on for an increase for their budgeting purposes for employees, or if you, what your options are there.
When do you need that, right away, or?
If you could give me an indication today, I would get an email out to the department heads today.
And last year, we just said, go up to 3%, wasn't it, just for budgeting?
Is that what it was last year? 3%?
I don't know why, that stuck in my mind
I
and
don't
it
remember that.
was.
It was
3%,
Maybe it
it was
wasn't. Was it 2?
two something, I don't remember.
Okay.
What did we do? The only one we reduced, we didn't do the supervisor, everybody else just went with what the board compensation recommendation was, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Okay. We'll just make it easy to go with that and,
With,
The recommendation?
yeah.
like the 2.615.
You gotta start with something and then Gloria can do all the work tweaking her little numbers
Well, it
and
almost
programs over and over and
seemed,
over.
didn't they, at the timing that you were taking and getting the budget worksheets put out, we didn't have the recommendation, I don't think yet, by the compensation
No,
board.
we wouldn't.
So we had to take a stance and give them a number. But we have this now, so,
Right.
I think that makes more sense. And then as far as dates in January, I mean, I know from last year, that first meeting in January is a long meeting, isn't it?
Oh, the reorganization?
Just having to go through
It
everything
did.
takes time.
It's a whole
and
complete
just-
page, but it's just over and over and over and over and over. Point this, point that, point this, point that, repoint this.
And you started at 8 o'clock.
I remember that.
I don't remember it being 8 either.
Maybe not. That's if, when we used to do cash count on January 1, it used to
There you
be.
go.
That's at 8.
Yeah, now you do it July 1.
That one I know
July
it is.
great. Take me back, that was on cash.
I
count
know,
in
I
January.
mean, I can go either way, but I just thought if that's a long meeting, maybe picking another date, you know, to start all of the budget discussions with the department heads.
Well,
It doesn't matter.
All the department heads typically could fit in on the 8th and 9th,
Okay.
if you did it on the 8th and 9th. It would just be if somebody's off that week.
I'm fine.
And then we are, well, depending what you do for your holidays, you would be closed the 15th. Unless you wanted to have a budget workshop another day, like on the 16th or something. Or not. But I could schedule it for here and then we could fill in anybody
Yeah.
that.
Right.
I think that makes sense.
Item 11, Nolte County Social Services Fiscal Year 17 Annual Report.
Wait, I'm gonna go back on your other part of that fiscal year 18 budget amendment.
Oh.
This is all your claims here for tomorrow. We are overshot already again with juvenile probation. We just last meeting did the $5,000 shift.
Right,
It's gone already.
wow, okay.
We are, Tracy's holding claims, so we do need to amend the budget. And for tomorrow, you've got a.
Jeff wanted to amend his also.
Just for the cleanup on the home property.
That's the only other one I've heard of.
I didn't know if you wanted to do anything like with Jeff Brooks, who came in with an increase in his budget.
Because of the jailers.
Yeah.
Does he want to?
Well, he already.
He already
did present to
proposed,
you.
yeah.
You wanna put that to the next regular meeting? Not tomorrow, but 2 weeks from now?
Setting the date for the budget amendment, I put for tomorrow's meeting.
Are we hurting
Yeah.
them because they're holding all those claims, the juvenile?
They're
They'll not worry about if they don't get it in the next
Okay.
claim run, and you wouldn't have a hearing by the next claim run anyway.
Okay.
But I was thinking if you
Alright.
set your hearing for something like, maybe January 23rd or something like that.
Okay.
And you've got a little time to talk about amendments, but should be. But if you want to pursue Jeff, then are you thinking you wanna talk to him again before you put anything in amendment, or not put in an amendment, or?
You're talking about hiring or changing the people around? Is that what you're, what does Jeff need a budget amendment for? Correct.
For the, when he talked to you about the jail, report from Delbert Longley, he suggested that they should have more jail staff. And so Jeff, I think, was bumping
Full-time.
part-time to full-time.
Right.
So budgeted for,
I'll talk to him and see, but I guess I was thinking that he was gonna be able to make that work.
oh, I haven't heard anything about it since he came
But I
here.
mean,
I would maybe talk to him and just see what he says about it, because I know when he proposed it, he was just trying to say, hey, this is what I'm hearing from, you know, the inspector, and just getting his recommendation so that he was presenting it to us. Now, how needed is that, you know, to do something now versus waiting, I guess is the question, so maybe you could just talk to Jeff.
I'll ask him.
I know.
Okay. Okay, back to item
And
11.
medical examiner will need to be bumped up also.
Yeah, that's been at max for right now.
Item 11, Norwood County Social Services fiscal year 17 annual report. Do you have that? It's not in-
Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
This was at the meeting.
There was a lot of discussion on that at the meeting the other day.
So, this meeting was held last week in Owens, and I could not attend that, so, it was presented at that time.
There was a lot of discussion on county social services in general. Okay, so noted. Item 12, future agenda items. Obviously, upcoming parking policy rewrite.
We are rewriting it then?
I guess,
If you wanna tell me what you want, I can rewrite it, or I can rewrite it to what I think it maybe should be.
the complaint is that this parking lot over here has empty spaces during the day. So our glorious thinking is the north half be employee parking, the south half be, what I'm
Vice
talking about,
versa.
this parking lot, the south half be.
There's one more parking place on this side for county vehicles than it would be on that side because of the 2 permit parking. And, there's 7 vehicles, but county
The
vehicles.
loudest complaint is Cena doesn't like the rock in that parking lot over there, she wants a camera over there. And I told her that she doesn't need to park over there, she can park on the north side and walk over there, there's no rock over there if that bothers her. But we were not spending any money to redo that parking lot until we know what we're doing with that jail.
Well, there's parking places
You might wanna,
on
before
that
you talk to
parking
him
lot.
before, maybe put it on an agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was
item.
gonna say. I guess if you are planning on revising it, let's get it, update it and get it on an agenda for the future here. So yeah, for future items, yeah, absolutely.
That's a future one.
Yeah.
And obviously our budget amendment will be a future one. Anything else?
Can we talk about the proposed changes to the Board of Supervisors board?
On a,
Oh, for the
on a
jail.
workshop meeting or as future agenda?
Just as, yes,
Do you wanna do it as your item number 6 today?
You wanna go back to item 6?
it's not on item 6.
Or,
It says Jail Law Enforcement Center.
Right,
Yeah,
We're
but that
talking
was.
about the courthouse.
okay.
We can have it as a separate agenda item, yeah.
You want a workshop?
Yeah,
You're talking
I would say
just this
workshop.
board, this room?
The Board of Supervisors boardroom.
Okay.
Okay, not with the plans for jail. You're talking,
I don't understand what you mean.
you're talking, we doing this room right here? Or are you talking of in the jail plans that Linda's gonna talk with Prochaska about?
Well, I assume that at some point in time, it's gonna be a bond referendum. We talked about the fact that we're not going to, they're not separate. I mean, we're not gonna do all the changes to the courthouse as part of the bond referendum, so.
Well, we certainly can. I mean, we can talk about that, and we can and I have mentioned it to Prohaska, your ideas. And they just wanna know what direction we wanna take. So we can certainly mention that to them, that there's some discussion about, you know, modifying or location change.
Yeah.
So that they're open to that. I mean, they just need to know.
But you don't think that would, could be captured in number 6 today? Number 12,
To, Chair,
I
if you wanna go
think that-
back to number 6, we,
Well, if you want, to me, it's all part of that law enforcement, so if you wanna go back to number 6, I'm fine with that.
I would say let's just do that, because that really, because when I go back to Prohaska, even on modifications for the 500-year floodplain, I just need to know, you know, what our thoughts are, and I look at it as we're another department, you know, to the existing courthouse needs. So if there is some thoughts about making a room change or anything else, I just need to let, you know, find out what are we talking, where do we think, and I can bring that up to them when I have that
Right.
call. So I'm fine with that,
Okay.
Mark.
okay.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've long thought that the Board of Supervisors should move into a different boardroom that can accommodate the needs of county residents. When we get more than 6 people in this room, it's literally more than a closet. It doesn't allow for a proper discussion of items that are important to the county, and I just think it needs to be updated. There aren't, we don't even have individual desks. There isn't, this is it. That's what we have. I just think there needs to be some long-range planning, thinking about what the needs of the Board of Supervisors of the future are, how we can best meet the needs of the public. Clearly, this room does not work, in my opinion.
You know what my thoughts were on that from day one, that we should've went somewhere and done something and knocked that wall out. I was all for that. Have been forever. My thoughts are still, and it fits into that plan, just the way they have it drawn, is for the supervisors to be down there in that, in the Board of Health room. You know, which number 1 is twice as big, it's almost, and if you took that wall out and go back to what that room was originally, which is the break room now, that's a big area. It's almost like, I mean, it gets real close to the same size as the council chambers at the city hall. Which is virtual.
Which is, let's see. So it's this area?
Yeah, it's this area. So if you took this closet and this wall out, this whole entire room, that's virtually a little stage up there, and I'm assuming that's why they did that, but this wall has been put in there. So you have the EMA, wouldn't the EMA and the,
They're moving. We show them moving right now. So basically, the reason why this is not dark today is because we were not planning that far as to who, you know, modifying this room. So if somebody else was gonna go in there, we weren't talking about modification. So that's open, I guess, you know, for discussion.
right?
We certainly didn't have anything.
Here's just another possibility, just because we're just in the planning stages. How about knocking out that wall? Maintaining the supervisor's office as an office, and knock that wall out and use what is currently a recorder's reception room, and and have the meeting room in the existing clerk of court's office. It's just a possibility. There is some, I would think there's probably some interest in the auditors having adjacency to the supervisor's meeting instead of at another level.
Yeah.
You know, that's a thought. Keep
Does
the
he have
offices.
Maybe you could just get by with a door here,
Well,
do that, so you can have a place to,
Well,
you
when
can
you're,
have this office.
when you're talking money, wise, this wall that has just been added into it sometime, that's an original wall of the courthouse. So there's probably some more money involved in breaking through that one than there is in some of those other ones, but.
I don't know.
The clerk of courts, their intent is to go up to the,
Right now, we have them going on the fourth floor, or up where the jails, yeah.
and there was talk of the
Recorder, we know
recorder
there, but
moving
again,
over there.
now that we're having that discussion with that window
But-
option, that
Whether
the
really
window or
keeps
not.
them where they're at.
Right,
Yeah.
if they can work in that space.
Have you been to the Mitchell County Courthouse?
No.
The new one, they have windows where the
Public and.
customer literally stands in the hallway and deals with the people. So it's just there's a half door and
Yeah, it's a pull, it has a pull
must be
down.
a chain thing that pulls down or a window or a shade that pulls down. So like in the auditor's office, that whole entire front desk could be moved out of there, whether you're gonna do it or not, but the door would become a half door and you'd have a window at
Well,
the
those
end.
aren't renovations that have been talked about with this, it's just been the two offices affected with the punch through, which would the assessor and the recorder. Or the assessor. That, you're talking a lot more money if you're going to make all the offices have a window situation like that.
So if you do it to one, wouldn't you do it to Frank too? Or not?
That's, now you are talking more money, that's a whole different.
That's
Well,
my
I mean,
concern,
yeah.
I'm trying to keep the cost down, you know, to what's most impacted, but, what we're talking about for a boardroom is, you know, maybe not as much as altering, I think, a lot of the other departments, you know, that weren't even thought about.
And with what you're
Direction.
talking about on first floor, Doug, then you're talking about a break room, and you're probably talking somewhere where you're gonna put a sink and that might get costly as well. If you're talking of taking the whole break room with a step up and all that.
And then what happens with the break room today? Where does it go?
And I realize these are pretty kind of preliminary discussions. I was just a conceptual idea of having the boardroom adjacent to this room, the meeting room. I think we need to look at things like what we're gonna need going forward for the next century. I mean, we don't have microphones, we don't have any audiovisual equipment in this room.
And Justin, we'd love to hear that. Justin.
I would love to see microphones with an AV output.
We have a lot of maps that are displayed, the county engineer comes in and tells us,
Well,
how old is that drainage district map? It's fine, but, there's just, there could be generally we're literally, could bring us into this century.
Well, this mirrors what we heard at the supervisors meeting the other day. You kicking the can down the road, you just wanna get by, or do you wanna make it nice? If you wanna make it nice, you're gonna spend some money. If you're just gonna get by, you can,
If
you
you,
know,
if you did the clerk of court, could you have supervisor offices in the back room? Clerk of court's office? Everything is.
I guess, this, it's just a very initial idea, but I think it needs to, those discussions we need to have before we include it in a bond referendum, based on a kind of a square footage report. The
if
what-
you go through there, that book, and granted, that's a really, really old book, and that's only for I think there were 10 of those books, you get one for remodeling, that's a site work thing. It's all online today. I just wanted to show you, that's how they arrive at those numbers they came up with. But, you know, I'm all for this bond issue spelling out, the jail is this portion, the other portion is doing something in the courthouse.
No, I totally agree. I just think and we should be specific about what's gonna be happening in the courthouse portion of it, as we are specific as to what's happening in the jail. Just from a financial perspective, we have some past precedents that didn't go well. You remember the renewal or the remodeling of the magistrate court?
I read all about it.
You know, I would like to see when the bond issue is offered to the voters of Floyd County, that we have a complete redesign of the offices in the courthouse. Obviously, we're going to have in the law enforcement center. But not allow another circumstance where we had a $100,000 overrun on the remodel of the magistrate court. Am I about correct on that?
When did
Oh.
What was the overrun on the remodeling?
It was
of the
under-
magistrate?
Julie came to you with something like, it was gonna be like 18,000, it ended up over 50,000.
It's over 50.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'd like to see the plans drawn up so it's once and done, so that we don't have remodeling and additional costs and additional budget years, so.
Well, anytime you're messing with a 70-year-old building, they're gonna add, and you'll see it in their contingencies, and there'll be a lot of them because of the age of the building. That's, you know, punching through an old wall.
Because you don't know until
Taking
you're
out.
actually going in and doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
And there's contingency.
I'm all for that. You know, otherwise you're gonna do just what we heard. You know, how could we ever budget? Well, we budgeted $250,000 a year for 4 years to tuck point this thing, go to the outside's in really good shape. What? You know, what would you do, $300,000 a year to do a floor in a courthouse every year for 4 years? How else could you do it if you didn't do it with a bond?
You have money in
So-
the general fund right now that you could do some of those expenses as well.
Outside of the bond.
But my thinking, you'd still need to hire an architect so that we didn't go through this overruns on these little projects and too many people involved.
There would be a contract manager, I
Yes.
think, that with something this big.
Absolutely.
So,
So,
great discussion.
how do you want to approach that?
Well, and that's why I guess my question to you, because it sounds like you're having some discussion right now with the department heads, trying to get their buy-in or concerns shared now, you know, if they have any, and I think that's great, you know, we do need their input. To get though more defined, here's what our plans are. I mean, it almost sounds like we need specific meetings to be held with, you know, going around this courthouse and really looking at every single area that we've got and say, do we have a plan? So in this room, do we have a plan? Is there anything being modified? Yes, no, go, okay, let's go to the next room then and see what we're doing. So, I mean, that would give you a lot more comfort, I think, that, you know, we've really fully thought through the changes to the existing courthouse.
So then you're pinning the courthouse renovation to the bond issue
Well, again.
of the law enforcement center.
That has not been, and I guess that's my concern, I mean, that hasn't been voted on, you know, by
Right.
any of us. And that's where we're at in the phase of this project. Right now, this modification for the 500 year, I mean, I can, you know, I'll go back and certainly have them modify that, but they're gonna want us to tell them anything that's tight, you know, outside of their breaking into the existing, you know, walls, anything that we want done, we're gonna need to tell them, you know, so that there's a cost. And then again, if there is, they come back and say, here's what it is, here's what the jail's gonna cost, here's what the renovation is. And they've done that already, we just may be modifying those dollars. And then I see it's gonna have to be up to us to say, what do we think the citizens are going to be comfortable with? I mean, we have an existing building that needs work. Can we go ahead and all agree that we're going to proceed with X amount of money and we're going to go as one bond, you know, and get that voted on? So I
That's
see
fair
that
point.
we haven't done that yet, you know,
Right.
to get to that point.
And Clinton County didn't tie their courthouse renovations to their jail project, but they had done a lot of major renovations a few years prior. So they had very minimal courthouse renovations when they did this jail project they're on now, but they had their general fund dollars that they could use for that. So they didn't tie that to a bond.
But I do believe some have, you know,
Yeah.
that we've looked at, so that just happened to be Denton County. So again, I mean, we're just gonna have to, you know, figure that out as to what do we think the citizens, you know, and again, then it's campaigning and communicating and making sure that we fully are on board with, you know, what we're asking them to vote on. So back to this, I think, you know, it's a healthy exercise to go ahead and do, but, you know, I guess the way I'd like to see, I want it organized.
These, I mean, what they've done so far, I don't see anything wrong with what they've done. I mean, everybody is kind of in agreement that the clerk of courts is gonna go up there, and maybe the county attorney was gonna go upstairs, but,
That's,
yeah.
right.
But then you get into all these other details, I mean, the engineer's office, nothing was been done there, but there was a fitness room there that didn't need to be there, and there were other little details here and there.
That's still.
Well, but I mean, they just threw them in because it was easy to put something there, conceptual. So the question is, you know, can you change things around in here in the scope of what they got done, or do you need to go back to them and tell them? Obviously, they're gonna move some stuff anyway, or to get us out of the floodplain.
They'll be doing that, but that's just gonna
Right.
be movement, that's.
That may change a little bit of, because we're talking about the alignment of that.
It could, but I'm
hallway.
hoping that it doesn't alter too much of their plans of what rooms were gonna be impacted anyway to the existing courthouse. I'm not sure that that's gonna be a huge impact by them moving the jail back. I'm hoping. The other question, and again, the fourth floor, we spent enough time on, not again in detail, but for conceptual, because we wanna make sure we had a plan as to what's gonna go up to where the jail's at now. Because we didn't want it to be going to the citizens and say, we just haven't really thought through that. Yeah, we had looked, you know, there was a department up there, all of a sudden now it's gone and we don't know. So we wanted to make sure that we had done our homework on that, and meeting with the clerk of court and the county attorney, and just knowing the activity and the services that they perform is really up there, so that made sense.
Right.
Outside of these other departments, it really was just what's impacted by, let's say, the elevator where the inmates go into the existing courthouse and they go up to the third and fourth floors. We wanna make sure that, how does it impact the courtroom and what's in these offices and where do we go, and making sure that we're not eliminating a room that's a valuable room to them without thought as to what we're gonna do with it. So those were really the details that went into the fourth, third, you know, second and first. And again, EMA, because it's a huge impact to what we're doing in the jail as to what really is gonna happen with our emergency management. So we put a lot more thought into that too. How does the public get into the building, you know, and in case of an emergency, if we do have some of the other areas of the courthouse that are shut off, and making sure that we've thought through those things. Outside of that, if we feel that there are some of these departments that they're not dark, you know, that we wanna look at, because now's the time to review it. Now's the perfect time to evaluate whether we wanna take that step and modify some of these departments, because now's the time. If we go out for bond, then I think we should do that.
So, how do you wanna do that? Do you wanna have, make conceptions, or do you want to have meetings and figure it out with courthouse employees? How do you wanna?
Yeah, there needs to be, we've asked the engineer's office to, you know, if there's any changes they need, at a previous meeting, and haven't heard back from them yet, but that's, I'm just bringing up the board of supervisors, needed changes, because I think they're apparent.
I wonder if even space-wise, you know, if the recorder were moved over here, the supervisor moved into the recorder's office, that'd give you a whole back room for offices if you wanted, and then the rest of the area for meeting room. How much room do you think you'd want for the boardroom?
Yeah, but, you know, I think that's the way you want to start, and set some parameters around, you know, how many seats are needed, and what type of equipment do you want in the building, what do you want in that room, and, as I understand it, the additions and the changes in the courthouse came up kind of about as an add-on, or an addition to.
Not really an add-on, but they're necessary.
Is the
Number on the
lunchroom
fourth
is-
floor. The
And
fourth
we're
floor,
showing
you're
that
gonna
we've
do
thought
something
through
with
the
that
fourth
jail, no matter what, you know, take it out, otherwise you're gonna have an empty jail that you're gonna spend hundreds of thousands to get rid of it if you don't do it as part of this.
What I meant was the changes to the heating and air conditioning
And the
and
windows.
the HVAC system and the windows. That came about midstream in the discussion regarding the law enforcement center. That wasn't initially.
No, that was in the.
Not
That was
really.
in your agreement. when
That was
the-
in our
when-
agreement.
Oh, initially was.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
thought. Because you're gonna share heating, cooling systems with the new part and the old part.
Well, anyway, I guess the question is if we all agree that we need some more specifics on how we're going to change the footprint and the offices in the courthouse, how do we go about doing that?
A lot of people just go hire an architect and turn them loose.
True, but I mean, I'm trying to put Jim Class, who does our conceptual designs, and he's gonna say to us, well, what are you looking at? You know, what do you want? What are you thinking? So I mean, for us to go ahead and say, Jim, we'd like to, you know, have you help us with this, he's gonna need to know what our thoughts are.
And that's what I said,
So-
how do you wanna go about that? Do you wanna involve courthouse employees, you wanna take these conceptual drawings and mark them up, you wanna, who do you want to be involved in?
Well, obviously, I think every elected official should be involved in the discussion regarding the area that they're in control of, that they have supervision over, want to get input from the employees of the courthouse. I think ultimately the decision lies at this desk. You know, it's the three of us have to decide, I mean, ultimately, with input from elected officials and
Right.
employees and the general public. Maybe people in Floyd County think this is sufficient, this meeting room. It's unlike any other I've been around, and I think it's outdated. I just think it needs, it's not even, where is the supervisor's office? I get asked in the courthouse. Well, it's kind of behind the auditor's office, and you go in there and you've got this little room,
You have to walk around the desk at
Yeah.
the front of the door.
and, you know, this, I'm not, need to, really, just,
And sometimes the door is shut because the auditor's not in there.
yeah, I mean, the door's locked. So how do you get it?
Okay, so, question.
What?
Yeah.
I'm back to,
The where?
Yeah.
Well,
How do
and
you
I
get-
don't attend the department head meeting, so, my question to you is, how are you guys, you're just getting department head discussions going, right? But there's not an individual, okay, Dustin, we're gonna get you in here and talk about the engineer's office, you know, we're not getting like Rachel in here for the county attorney and having discussion, individual discussions, is that correct? I mean, we could certainly take that approach. What I wanna be careful with is that it's not an open, you know, what you thinking? Because again, we're paying taxpayer dollars, and I wanna be cautious, you know,
that was pretty
opening
much
that
what we had
door.
going the other day. I was trying to run a department head meeting, and it got pretty frustrating. So again, do you want to have organized meetings? Do you wanna wait until she talks to Jim to see if he wants to do a little more design work on the
Well,
existing
again,
courthouse?
he's not
or-
gonna do any design work other than when we go back and say we're gonna move the building back, and what impact does that
You just wanna go
have?
to each individual department head and ask them what they think of this, and then come together in a meeting sometime,
Sounds okay.
right?
Well, I think that's a start, yes.
Because we really haven't met individually. I mean, we went around at one point and talked to Rachel, but it was very high level, what do you think?
Right. And
You
it was
know,
after-
what if you were to move, are you happy where you're at? And that was about it. We really didn't get into any further discussion.
It was kind of after that, it's like, well, gosh, after you move clerk of court up on fourth floor, there might not be room for the county attorney,
Right,
so
Yeah.
maybe they don't move.
yeah. And if they don't, they stay put, we're not spending money on renovating their office, and so I look at that as, okay, maybe that's a good thing too. It's-
And it was the assumption that the assessor's office wouldn't be able to work, or the recorder's office wouldn't be able to work with that. Or didn't like the idea of a hall concept, or that corridor concept with a window, and to work out of it, relocating it.
I'd say then, you know, from my ideas would be, let's just go ahead and schedule individual department, you know, meetings, and we can walk into their offices and let's go take a look at it, and I'll get a hold of Jim, you know, on the redesign. What I need to find out from him is just in ideas, what changes are there to the existing courthouse because of him having to move it back? And if there is
Yeah.
not much impact, then we can go forward and have those discussions. If there is, we may wanna wait until he comes back and says, well, you know, you're already having a discussion with that department, but I've got some changes that need to be made, and then you may want those changes known before you have that discussion.
Mhm.
That's my thoughts. So let me get a hold of Jim first and just have him tell me, how much is the existing courthouse, does he think gonna change? Can we go ahead and start having those individual meetings? And I have no problem, I guess, you know, if you want me to be part of the,
That's what I'm asking, what vehicle you wanna use to do this? You want
okay, all right. I can help do that.
The law enforcement committee?
I can do that,
Okay.
all right? Sounds good. We'll be
So,
in touch,
we've
Frank.
covered all item 6 and future agenda items.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Adjourn.